And welcome to KTV. I am Monica Lee Ridgway, and I am a proud advisory board member of the Life Development Corporation. And on tonight, on Life Development Now, I will be talking and addressing how LDC decided to combat against not one, but two global pandemics that are affecting Black, Indigenous, and other people of color in this city, Metro Louisville. So just a little backstory, little snippet of LDC and what we do and why combating against these two global pandemics is not only a job to us, but it is a full obligation and service to serve BIPOC. So tonight, just a little snippet, because I like to give a lot of acronyms with a little meaning. BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. So if you hear me say something like BIPOC, that's what it means. If I say Black and Brown communities, I'll be using it interchangeably tonight. If I say Black, African American, or whatever in that frame of racial identities, that's what it'll be on tonight. So first, one thing about LDC, Life Development Corporation's mission is to support the unsupported. Well, in its vision, LDC seeks to partner and collaborate with individuals and organizations in Metro Louisville and beyond, promote positive and healthy lifestyles, and provide programs that will address the challenges and meet the needs of our community. So one of the things that we do is we empower and we support communities through collaborative outreach efforts. So one of those collaborative outreach efforts that we took a part of since 2017 is first joining the U.S. government's 10-year Ending the HIV Epidemic initiative, which is committed to increasing use of biomedical HIV prevention interventions through an increase of resources such as testing, getting tested, and knowing your status. So we have joined that HIV campaign, is promoting HIV testing, prevention, education, and empowerment. And with this initiative that we support, which honestly the first initiative started with the Obama-Biden administration, and then it ended up going into the Trump-Pence administration. Then now it's Biden-Harris administration. We just joined that 10-year ending the HIV epidemic to ensure that we end the HIV epidemic. And we can't end the HIV epidemic without addressing HIV in the BIPOC community, as well as being just like our civil rights ancestry people, is being the church, the faith-based organization to lead that initiative. So we're only doing what started between now and the early 60s, right? So with this initiative, one thing that we also do is, because we want us to end the HIV epidemic and to decrease new numbers of HIV, we decided to engage the community, join the initiative through awareness days, which we have several awareness days throughout the year. Some of the ones that we've worked on and partnered with the University of Louisville, as well as Louisville Metro Public and Health and Wellness, is assuring that we do testing during February, which is National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness, partnering with women in March, which stands for, one of those awareness days is National Women and Girls Awareness, and then also June for National HIV Testing Day, and December 1st, which is World AIDS Day. So those are some of the initiatives and some of the awareness days that we partner with our partnering communities to assure that we are addressing and ending this HIV epidemic. So with LDC, because we are a faith-based organization, when we decided that we were going to join other community leaders and stakeholders to assure that we address health disparities amongst BIPOC communities, we knew that it was going to be a little shaky because of the stigma that is associated with HIV. However, one thing about HIV that we know as advocates in the community is that it's not only something that affects BIPOC communities, but it also is a social justice issue. So in order for us to be social changers, we knew that we had to jump on this collaborative effort to assure that BIPOC communities were not going to be affected and deal with those health disparities that have burdened the Black communities. So that's one thing we did. And how we decided and why we decided to do this, that we understand that with health equity, it's when all members of society enjoy a fair and just opportunity to be as healthy as possible. But in order for us to do that, we had to address those health disparities that include race and ethnicity, geography, healthcare access. So in order for us to do that, we had to assure that we addressed, in order for us to support health equity, we had to address those social determinants of health and health disparities amongst BIPOC communities, which again, it stands for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So what else did we do to address that we were assuring that all members of society enjoyed a fair and just opportunity to be as healthy as possible? Is we also became a vaccination site for COVID-19, which is one of the other global pandemics that has affected African Americans and Black Americans and Hispanic and Latino and Latinx communities at an alarming rate, is to assure that we became a trusted site to provide vaccinations. So it's crazy that I say this, but basically when it comes to those two global pandemics, HIV and COVID-19, you would think that they would be different, but in our reality, it's the same script, just different viruses, different pandemics, right? So in our current state, when it comes to COVID-19, we have seen how African Americans and Black Americans have really been affected, and not just affected to a point where it's, a couple people have died. No, the first wave of fatalities as of April 2020, Black people were slammed massively, dying at rates higher than those of other ethnic and racial groups as the virus rampaged against all different areas in the nation. And Louisville, the city of Louisville, was not left out. So what LDC did was life-changing to become a trusted site, to become a vaccination site for people that were 65 and under. And we've seen a lot of different ethnicities. We've seen a lot of different races. But one thing that I noticed was the different shades of BIPOC communities. So it wasn't just Black and African Americans. We had people that were from different places in the nation that are just here that were considered BIPOC communities. So that was something that just blew my mind. And because of us being social changers and advocates, we had to not only fight against HIV, combat against HIV by ending that epidemic, but we also decided to combat against COVID-19 and how we were planning to be the face, the organization to also end that pandemic. So I know I said a lot, but I just wanted to, address how LDC became that organization, along with Kingdom Fellowship Christian Life Center, by addressing those two global pandemics. So we're going to take a small break, and then when we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit more and give you some more synopsis and little tidbits on what we're doing and how we're continuing to fight against both global pandemics, HIV and COVID-19. and welcome back to our discussion on the two global pandemics that Life Development Corporation has decided to combat against while serving our community at large. So just a little bit more about the Black communities and how they are disproportionately burdened with two concurrent pandemics. While representing only 13.4% of the U.S. population, Black people accounted for 42% of new diagnoses of 44 of HIV-related deaths in 2018. The racial disparity has been persistent and sustained for decades. A similar pattern is emerging in the COVID-19 pandemic, and although race and ethnicity data on COVID-19 outcomes are limited, Black, non-Hispanic people accounted for 15.3% of the 250,572 deaths for which race and ethnicity data were available, which is 76% of 326,015 deaths on February 7th of 2021, just this year. A death rate from what we've seen that is 1.5 times higher than the rate amongst white non-Hispanic people is very alarming. So this is just nationally. So some of those same numbers are very similar in the city of Louisville. So one thing that really blew my mind with what Life Development Corporation and Kingdom Fellowship decided to do to partner with each other to combat against COVID-19 was allowing our site to be a vaccination site. Mind-blowing, right? Very, very, very mind-blowing. And it was just something that we needed in our community to reassure that we could trust and debunk all of the mistrust that dates back to Tuskegee University and other systems and other medical mistrusted systems that we have heard about from our ancestors and our friends, and even things that we've learned in studies. So that's one thing that really just blew my mind and reassured that we were doing the right thing amongst our people that we are serving in the community. So something else that is just really mind-blowing with how we partner with the University of Louisville and Walgreens to become a vaccination site, just to hear the feedback of the community on how they felt more safer, they felt like they could get or go back to a new normal. Our new normal was just, mask and social distancing, but to be able to go back and getting closer to normalcy was something that really blew my mind on how we were deciding to be the forefront and the people that you see in the forefront to serve the community by allowing us to be a vaccination site. So for Black people in the U.S., it shows how we are affected by two global pandemics, and COVID-19 and HIV has basically exposed these inequities with a microscope and how disproportionately affected Black people and other social and economic disadvantaged populations get to experience here. So in the U.S., health disparities have been documented since W.B. Du Bois, when he highlighted that racial and ethnic health inequities in 1906 was an actual issue. Despite decades of awareness, despite most of the gaps in life expectancies and disease incidence and morbidity and mortality amongst racial and ethnic groups in the U.S., these things have persisted and expanded, resulting in an estimated of 83,000 deaths annually amongst us, Black people. But one thing I like to say about LDC is despite the treatment and the prevention efforts often overlooked due to the underlying social determinants of health, we stood in the gap. We allowed ourselves to be a trusted community partner. And that matters because when you're trusted, people will do things like get a vaccination despite of all of the rumors, or even get tested for HIV despite of all the myths. In a trusted place that they can come in. So LDC being that face, being that community partner to be able to allow people to come in and feel the warm welcoming experience to knowing their status for COVID-19, well, for HIV, and to receive the vaccination was, I think, very life-changing for not only this church, not only for our nonprofit organization, LDC, but for the community at large. So I know I said a lot tonight, but this is just the beginning of us speaking of what LDC does and how we decided to continue to support the unsupported by combating not one, but two global pandemics that have been affecting Black and African Americans at an alarming rate, and how we're going to continue to combat against COVID-19 and HIV. So that is, I'm wrapping it up tonight. When I come back next time, I'll be talking about microaggression and how Black and brown people can survive stress-free as possible in spaces that are not always receptive to us. So thank you tonight for tuning in, and that wraps up the show.